Well, good morning, Greg. It's Friday morning when we're recording this episode. So we're going to kind of jump right into the case that was in the news this week. The woman in Memphis whose teacher was killed on her morning run, Eliza Fletcher, out running in the morning at 4:30 in the morning. So I'll just kind of recap what
Yeah.
we know has happened, and then we'll kind of jump into on how we talk about these things. So she went out for her usual morning run. She's a big time runner. Goes out 4:30 in the morning. Usually anyone out running at that time is pretty serious, whether or not they're competing or something. That's something that they do. That's not kind of common for most people, but more at people who are very consistent. So basically she went out, didn't come back. They called the police. Hey, she went missing. They went, and it took what I think a couple days to find her body at first. So found her
Yep.
body and then ended up arresting a suspect and charged him with first degree murder. And that's kind of where basically the case is at right now. So what when this originally came out, my wife had actually mentioned to me, like, hey, did you hear about this woman? And it said something, she's some like heiress, has a lot of money. And so at first I was kind of like, okay, maybe there's something more to this story, like she was targeted or something.
Right.
As the facts of the case sort of came out, it showed it looked like this guy was sort of an opportunity. He saw her out running and then attacked her, kidnapped her, brought her in the vehicle, then killed her. So important thing to understand is like her body was found, I think it was like 7 miles from her house, but like 2 blocks from where this guy was living, and he was living with his brother. His brother was actually subsequently arrested as well for unrelated charges, I believe, but something that he was doing. And so I just want to start off with, before we kind of start this discussion about what happened, is the suspect that they arrested is likely the person that did it, right? They have that, but um, that's the person that's responsible for this crime. So we're not blaming Eliza or anything for what happened, this victim blaming. But what we are going to talk about is, how can you prevent these things? How do these things occur? Is this random occurrence? Was she targeted? All that stuff. And what can you personally do about this? And the idea is, I get it. Yes, every woman in the United States or in the world should feel free to jog at 4:30 in the morning and wear whatever you want and do whatever you want. I get that, but it's not the world we live in. So
That's true.
so what we have to do is there's certain measures you can put in place, and it's not her fault, but like we always say with everything, your safety and security is your responsibility. Safety and security of your family is your responsibility. It's not someone else's. It's not the police. It's you, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. I just always have to kind of caveat that, because people say, well, you're bashing her. No, we're not. She was doing everything right, probably in life. She's a school teacher. She's a mom. She's, a runner, doing all the stuff. She didn't do anything wrong. The person who did something wrong was the person who killed her. So just want to clear that up front. So
Yeah.
there's a bunch of things we want to jump into with this, Greg. Where do you want to start with it?
So I would say this. I would say if you're driving, pull over for a minute, grab your yellow pad, and draw a series of concentric circles from the center going out. I want you to think for just a second about the rings on a tree that when you cut it, you take a look at the rings and you can determine the age. Remember that old thing,
Yeah.
folks? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, look it up on your Google machine, and you'll understand it in just a moment. But I want you to also understand, when no matter the thickness of your pen, I want you to remember that as you're drawing those circles going out like ripples in a pond emanating from the first drop that comes in, that there's an outside of that line and an inside of the line. Just a hair breadth of a difference, but it makes a lot of sense in a minute. So I also want you to think of like a irrigation pipe or the pipes in your home. You have what's called an inside diameter and an outside diameter. And right now some lights are coming on. You're going, oh, I get it. He's talking about that the line itself has volume, and therefore there's a little bit of difference between the inside and the outside. Now, I want to clarify a couple of things for the folks that don't follow news closely. I'm using those rings not only as a timeline, but as an opportunistic advantage for one or both players. So if you read the news this week, you'll know the Canadian stabbing, both brothers are dead,
Hmm.
horrific incident. If not,
Yeah.
folks, do your gosh damn homework. The one brother, the brother that was caught second and then self-inflicted, died. Brian, he had 86 convictions on his record.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I offer that only based on the fact that the person that abducted Eliza Fletcher, okay. Now, you said, hey, maybe it's a target of opportunity. I say that that's very speculative. I think looking at this kid's record, meaning going back to where the rock first hit the pond, isn't always the place we need to go. Sometimes we need to go back and find the rock, and then we find the hand. You get what I'm trying to say? We
Yeah.
have to work backwards from ground zero, right?
Right.
So in this instance, it's interesting to me that he spent a significant time in jail, and one of the charges that he had was for kidnapping.
Kidnapping. Right.
And he drove a person around in the trunk until he tried to find the ATMs. And you know what? That person lived and he went to jail. So what did you learn from that? What do you learn from the prison system when a victim goes, yep, that's him. Okay. Hey, I'm not going to leave another victim. Okay. Now, whether he knew or didn't know that she was a billionaire heiress, they're still trying to determine that.
Right.
I would tell you this. I would tell you, CEO of our company and I, when this was breaking news, she walks in and she goes, hey, there's more to this one than meets the eye.
Right,
and when
right.
Shelley says that, that's laser focus, right? And what she said to me afterwards is this isn't a standard domestic. The husband didn't buy somebody to go rough up his old lady or those type of things. And folks, I'm not making light of this. I'm trying to say that there's certain patterns
that happen. Yeah.
And most of the time that the person that murdered you
is someone you know. Yes.
Yeah. So this likely involved surveillance, planning, even if it was, listen, we talk all the time about advanced critical thinking. Okay, your suspect in this didn't have a lot of advanced critical thinking. The minute that there was a form of resistance, he raised the level of escalation, murdered her, and then was going to go through with the kidnapping plan. He was arrested long before because he made so many mistakes. Her body was discovered, and now they're not releasing the manner of death. That's significant because they want to use that in the subsequent prosecution and make sure their witness pool isn't tainted, right? Because if they go on, they go strangulation death, that gives you all kind of ideas and people come out of the woodwork. So here's my thing, Brian. You hit on a couple of key points. One, she's a runner. She's consistent. She goes out every morning early. You know why? Because that's her time. And Brian, she's putting on the shoe leather. You know how I can prove that? Her school said that her qualifying time was only 12th, I believe, in the school. And folks, hold me to that. You can look it up online.
Yeah.
But Brian, her qualifying time was 12th in her school district. Okay. But it qualified her for the Boston Marathon.
Yeah,
so she's a runner,
avid runner. She's this isn't something she didn't just decide that morning to throw the shoes on and start losing weight or something. This is what she does. This is
somebody listening, Brian, is wondering why we would bring that up. Well, that takes away from the domestic violence thing. She didn't just get mad and walk out of the house. She's not hitchhiking and then some ne'er-do-well, pulls over and attacks her.
This wasn't the Chris Watts in Colorado. I woke up. She usually goes for a run, and she never came back this morning. Yeah,
right. Exactly. And there's no and there's no dialogue that would prove or disprove that. And then the second thing is the Ring camera. The location camera, I'm making fun of the Ring doorbell cam, which is caught more people cheating, by the way, than any other thing, even though they're the people that installed it. They never thought that it could be used against them. Idiota. But think about this for a minute. So there's a camera that shows part of a vehicle and part of a suspect and part of a struggle. And those coppers put that together with the feds in record time, Brian. This guy was behind, at the Gray Bar Hotel. He was behind bars in such a quick time. Applause for them. Also, to anybody that ever met Eliza Fletcher, we're so sorry because this is a horrific symptom of the way things go. So I would propose to you, instead of sitting here and, like you said, nobody likes victim blaming. It just happens to be a journalistic metaphor. Nobody wants to think that their son or daughter could have this happen to them. Nobody wants to be killed at 4 a.m. when they're on their run listening to, Boston's More Than a Feeling.
Yeah.
How do we prevent this? So I say that we talk about a couple of things that we know that you could do that would just change the dynamic slightly. Now, inside diameter, outside diameter, who's running on which? Let's talk about what the victim is likely thinking, what the suspect is likely thinking, and how we could manipulate that. I mean, to me, that seems like a logical way to go in a caper like this.
Yeah, and we get into this because there's people this gets into it's not unlike route selection for planning a mission, right?
Oh my
that's
gosh,
what that's what you're kind of doing here. And I understand that, yeah, it sucks to think that way, but like we said, it's your personal safety. So there's things like that that you could look at and go, you know what, I've been running this same exact route or the same time at every single time, every single day. I'm whether you choose to change that or not, meaning like, oh, I could go a different way and start planning different routes and change it up. Whether you, if you don't want to do that, you have to realize what you're doing. You are
Yes.
setting a pattern. You are setting yourself up to be a target more so than the person who does change things up or doesn't do that. So
Yep.
it's one of those things you have to sort of take into account. And you know, so something as simple as that, and everyone goes, well, this could happen anywhere at any time. It's like, well, no, it can't really. There's only so many places where someone
Precisely.
could
Yeah, explain that.
abduct you.
Go into
Well,
that geographically, because that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
So
You see that in your own life. I see that just this morning going shopping at City Market. The
right.
choices I make, right? Nobody could victimize me at certain points because I'm open to the public. How does that work? How do we
Well,
think
I
about that?
mean, so we talk about geographics and things
Yeah.
like natural lines of drift, anchor points, habitual areas, and what those are, but without really getting into a detailed explanation, like, you know, I look at it as when I'm like when I'm walking the insurgent to school sometimes, right?
Right.
So if someone, it's about access, right? If someone wants to kidnap a kid, which is very rare, most kidnappings are, again, it's a family member, it's the dad takes the kid or the mom takes the kid, right? Meaning some random stranger coming up and kidnapping a kid on the street is very rare in the United States, right? But the idea is it can only happen during so many times in so many places. So it's not something that it's a finite data set, if I were to use like a mathematical term of probability of
Precisely.
what's the likelihood it's going to happen. So like in the morning, you know, when kids are going to school,
Right.
okay, that's more likely to happen because that's when it has to there or when they're coming home. So I do stuff like that when I walk with the insurgent to school and I'm looking up at all the different vehicles on the street and go, hey, are any of those running? Is there anyone sitting in it? Why is that person sitting in their vehicle? Are they likely just leaving, going to work, and they're checking their phone real quick, or are they sitting in their vehicle looking around at what's going on? Two different things. Why would they do that? Oh, okay,
Yep.
they could be waiting here to pick someone up because then they're going to go somewhere. Okay, but
Precisely.
what would that look like? And just literally training and practicing, hey, look inside that vehicle when you walk past. Why? Because
Exactly.
it's enough for her to go, hey, that seems odd. And it's all the way down the street. I now have time and distance, right? I now have a decision to make. I'm not right up on that. I mean,
There are three important concepts you just discussed. So anybody that's still pulled over with your yellow pad, number one, Brian is teaching the insurgent what right looks like. So when she walks to school alone in the future, she's got a model for her behavior. One huge thing, we could do an episode just on that. Second thing, Brian, is you were using all of the domains as you were walking there
yes.
to express, look, here's likelihood. Here's a hedge. It's lower light. There's more children. There's less people at the bus stop. What you're doing is you're evaluating the current situation and updating the information so the fans of the OODA loop that don't know what it means but still are fans, this is what it means. It means that, listen, if we're talking inside diameter, outside diameter, for every step that Brian took with the insurgent, there's a suspect that's looking and going, well, I'm not going to target her because she's a harder target than the kid that's walking alone with their earbuds in, reading their phone or playing, whatever kids play nowadays. Brian, the third one is that not a couple of years ago when Dorner was killing coppers, the police that were set up looking for an anomaly because they thought more cops were going to be killed. Remember, he was targeting also their homes. He had their home addresses. They shot up two different
Right.
sets of people because they had similar cars. One being the paper boy, one being the guy that exited too fast from the freeway and made a
Yeah.
right instead of a left. You remember that?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying there is that when you take a look at the situation, you so change the dynamic by putting that extra ripple in that person couldn't catch your OODA loop. I'm not trying to be obtuse. I'm trying to say that you change the dynamic. And if you walk the same way with the insurgent every day, you set a pattern. So back that the F up. You get what I'm trying to say?
Right.
What you have to do is you have to say, I can't do this at the exact same time in the same day, or I'll set a pattern. And patterns are what criminals look like, or look for rather. They look at that pattern, they analyze the pattern and go, this person's checked out, there's my victim.
Well, and
That's
you
great.
know, especially to go to the Eliza Fletcher, example is that she's likely running with listening to music, you're zoned out sort of, you're focusing on
Yep.
what you're doing.
You're in the zone. Yeah.
And well, yeah, you're in your zone, but that again, that so basic things that would stick out to a person just walking down the street is you're less likely to see. You're putting yourself in that situation. So
So
again,
do that. Juxtapose that for a
yeah,
minute. So our suspect is on the inside diameter, and Eliza's on the outside diameter. And what I mean by that is that she's got a scheduled beginning point. She has about how fast she's going to run. She's
mm-hmm,
got the end point. All of those are her decisions, Brian. They're all
mm-hmm,
down and in. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Her music selection, her
yep,
shoes. I need some moleskin because I got that rough spot on my right ankle. Do you
yep,
get what I'm trying to say? Hey, this next is uphill. I got to increase my pace or whatever. All that's going on in there. The other guy's going, woman, that's my target. She's going to slow down when she goes uphill. How much fuel do I have in my car right now? I don't want to rev the engine, right? Because I don't want to surprise her. I want to have that element. So what are we doing? He's inside diameter. His
yeah.
loop's much tighter, Brian. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Predatory looks, mission focus. I've got a mission to complete. So these are the elements. She's not even. Do you think one time that morning she goes, fuck, it's early, I might get kidnapped? I would
No,
tell you
yeah.
that that's never even been in her OODA loop, you know?
Right. And also because a lot of people don't know what or how to look for those things, right? So it's like
Certainly.
even if she had thought like, yeah, it's kind of dangerous because realistically, going for a run at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, like you're fairly safe. I mean, in general,
Of
I mean,
course you are,
you're
because most truds are already in bed.
they're in bed.
Vampires are starting to look for
Yeah,
their
yeah,
coffin, right?
exactly. Like
Yep,
you're at that time of day where
totally agree.
there's no one out, so it's easy to see people and everyone. I mean, meaning like you said, even the chuds are like, well, it's 4:30. I'm gonna go to
Yep,
sleep and get up at the crack of noon now. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So
Yep,
you're kind of
yep.
in that area. It's not like you're going at 1 a.m. Or something. But so you're kind of it's what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to do this? Look, I got to live my life. It's like, yeah, you do, but you brought up that checklist of things that we're likely going through, or are an examples of things of someone going out on a run would do, right? I call those are
Yep,
like those are inside the house concerns, right? I'm getting myself
absolutely.
prepared. Okay, what else do I need? What else do I need for this run? Do I have this? All, like we say, all that planning, all that process beforehand allows me to do what? Once I step out the door, I don't have to worry about all that stuff. I did that
Precisely.
inside. Now, outside, I can. Like, I like looking up and around. I hate running. I only do it now because it's a useful skill to have, and I do it every once in a while in limited durations.
Exactly. I only run
But
if I'm being chased.
but yeah, but the idea is the same thing, is that's when you're out and about. Well, that's the time to take things in. That's the time to look at what's going on. Because one of the things that did happen in this case that they have the video of that they released in one of
Hmm.
the news reports was that the suspect drove past her, right, and then stopped and waited for her to come up to him. So he set
Yep,
in an ambush, whether it was
yep,
hasty, whether he had pre-picked that spot or in
yep,
that general area, he saw this was a good location. So the idea is a vehicle drives past you, not a lot of traffic out there, it goes up ahead and stops. Now,
yep.
again, is it enough to go, what's going on here? Yeah, it
So,
absolutely is what we're
so
saying is
do
I
that
have to
range.
make sense of that. Did they pull into
Do
the
that
driveway? Did
continuum.
they, you know what I mean? Or did they just sit there and wait?
Exactly.
Are they facing the opposite direction of traffic? Are they on the left side of the street?
Is
So
the
they were
vehicle still
driving.
running?
Yeah.
Right? Were there other people? Did the dome light come on? Why am I saying that the continuum, Brian? Because you hit on something again that's fucking essential. Take a look. As she's running, she sees the vehicle. First thing she thinks is Paperboy. Those cops that were set up in San Jose, they didn't think Paperboy. They thought, hey,
Or
it's
out to
Downer,
LA.
and
Yeah.
he's coming. He's going
That's
to start
exactly
shooting.
what it was.
So, but that's inside outside, right?
Yep.
Because what's happening is she's looking at. Listen, folks, you go through denial, and the phases of denial are so fast and so rigid, meaning she looked and she said, well, this can't be a kidnapping. She would say that before she would say, this is odd. I wonder what he's up to. When he's jumping out and grabbing, she's going, well, this can't be happening. Do you understand what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
When we don't train for the moment, what happens is our brain goes for an available heuristic, for
Yes.
a file folder that can say, here's what's likely occurring. And guess what, Brian? If you haven't considered it, you come up on a black file, a white file.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing is there.
Yeah.
Do you
There's
get what I'm
nothing
trying to
there.
say?
And
And
no,
nothing.
that's the point you were just making, is that what were those
Yep.
police doing in the Christopher
Yep.
Dorner case? They were looking for Christopher Dorner.
You got it. And what
Therefore,
did they do? They put
whatever
those files in line.
whatever came close enough to
Yep.
Christopher Dorner. So,
We have a hit,
so
right?
now compare that to the lives case. What is she looking for? Let's say she did it.
Yep.
She's looking more. This person lives in this neighborhood. They probably are out. Whatever. Everything was what most
I
likely
dropped
happens.
something. They're returning it.
It never crossed into the, well, what
Exactly.
else could it be? What's the most dangerous course of action here?
So
Could this be a kidnapping? And that's the thing, is that
spot on.
it's a very simple way of looking at it. Is she goes off of her file folders, right? She only has file folders for what she's experienced in life
Yep.
and how people are. I never thought of this. The police go off of their file folders. They're amped up. They're looking for someone, right? It's
Exactly.
both sides of the same coin right there on how we process our environment.
Precisely. So now you take those concentric rings, Brian, and I can line up her and her assailant. I can line up Christopher Dorner and his victims. I can use this continuum to figure out where those spirals go. And the spirals, the anomalies, are where the danger is, Brian. That means predictive analysis. I don't have to run down every possible scenario. What I have to do is I have to look at the most likely ML scenarios, and there's only a couple of MD scenarios. Okay, she's more likely to get hit by a car than kidnapped, but she's a billionaire heiress. That changes my math. Okay, that changes my calculation. So now let's do this. Let's talk about pattern. Okay, we work in pattern recognition because it's important, but the most important part is the analysis. So everybody that just says increase your situation awareness hasn't read any of the shit that we're putting out there, because they're at the first part of it, not the second. The second's where the magic is. So listen, it's been a month now, a month and 10 days, because today's the 9th when we're recording this, since I've had the new gym. And it's not a new gym. I just painted the basement a different color, so it's a new gym, right? But I've got my elliptical, and I've got my bike. And the elliptical is a treadmill one that's also a stair stepper and all that other stuff. Brian, it was my 60th birthday. I splurged. Got the assault bike. My groinal region looks just like a GI Joe. I'm riding so hard and so fast that I sanded all that shit off, so I've got no bumps anymore. But listen to me, okay? I, in a month, trained myself what not to do. How? Because I went in there and it has 27 possible this. It has all these other things that are available to it. And you know what I found out in just a month, Brian? I like this workout the best. Out of those 27, this one's the fun one. And what, that fast start on the assault bike is much easier than me programming this. So I've done what? I've created a pattern that is the lowest caloric input. And guess what every morning I have to do when I go down there? I have to change that shit, because if I don't do that, what am I going to do? 6 months from now, you'll be able to come back and go on a computer and see that my fat ass only did those things. Do you get what I'm saying? I doubled my workout time in the basement. To do that took effort. Why? Because as soon as I got to that minute where I usually stop, you know what I'm saying? I would want to stop. You get what I'm saying? And so, listen, if that works for the shaved ape, the Neanderthal in my basement, that works for anybody when they're out on the road. Because when you're driving to the local Walmart, are you thinking that the Walmart might be on fire or robbed, or you might have to give the Heimlich? No. And guess what? Those are the realistic concerns that you need to address. When I pull up at the fast food restaurant, is the person in the car in front of me going to dive through the window to grab the cash out of the cash register? And you know what? How would that impact me? How would that delay me? Now, if we use that same mindset on the pattern recognition analysis, Brian, at an airport, we'd never get mad at the counter person when there was a plane delay. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because it would have already been something that we anticipated. You and I,
happen.
Could happen. You and I right now have a backup plan for everything, for every one of our meetings, every flight plan, where we're going to go to a different airport. We do that out of routine, and therefore it doesn't burn a lot of calories.
It's me flying out of here anywhere I go. I always get the first 6 a.m. flight out, no matter what time we have to be somewhere, no matter where I'm going. Why? Because if anything goes wrong, I have time to take a later flight, or if something happens, I'm there. If I go, I don't need to get on that till that noon flight. Well, that noon flight's the last one I can take. If it goes wrong, then I'm screwed. I'm not going to get to where I'm going.
Here we go. We're talking about those concentric rings again, aren't we? We're talking about that echo that's coming off of everything that we do or we don't do. I'll give you an example. One day soon, Insurgent's going to be on her way to school on her own. And folks, I'll tell you what Brian's going to be doing. Brian's going to be wearing his ninja suit, hiding in the hedge, watching to make sure that he takes a look at the atmospheric He's not going to be checking up on her. He knows she's doing the right thing. He's going to be seeing who's watching who. So surveillance begs counter surveillance. Why? Because you got to have people doing the surveillance and actively doing the counter surveillance so I can focus on my run. So I would tell you this, Eliza's husband, brother, sister, uncle, whether she was a billionaire or a teacher or not, just a female that's out there. If my wife was running at 4 in the morning, I knew she was setting a pattern every Tuesday for the next couple of weeks. Then I'd switch it to Thursday. I'd switch up the route selection, the time. Every once in a while, I'd run with her. Or I'd be out there in the car with the dog or something. Do you understand, Brian, that just that one choice spins all those other things out of control so a suspect can't best you? That's the idea. John Boyd said it best. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Nobody ever reads this shit. They just, quote it like it's a mantra. But what we're talking about is your pattern can be recognized. And once it's recognized, a person can target you. So my answer would be, do I think that Eliza Fletcher was targeted? Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. Now, is this the smartest master criminal with the bald head and the white cat? No. But what does he have? He's done it before. So when he saw it, the chips started falling in line.
Right.
And he goes, holy shit, here we go again.
So
right?
that's the thing. You kind of brought it up, but from his perspective, that same thing, right? All criminals, same thing, set patterns. All humans do. It doesn't matter. And what was his pattern? And how did he learn? What was his training? Training and education doesn't have to be formal. Okay. Training is life experience. Oh man, I let that person go after the last kidnapping, and then they pointed me out and I went to jail for a long time. Well, I ain't going to do that again. That's a hard
never happen again.
And I'm never doing that again. And so that's the idea, is in his mind where he's at, he now has an option that he didn't think of before, because on the previous one where he was convicted, he never thought of it. It wasn't wasn't a thought in his mind. He just said, I'm going to kidnap him, get some money. I'm going to get away with it. No big deal. This isn't a big thing, because he lacks the critical thinking skills. However, all humans learn. You learn either the hard way or you learn from others' mistakes. And exactly. That's the idea.
So, look at this, Brian. Back off the gas, because there's some person that's trying to outthink us. And listen, we're not that smart. No. We just stick to what we know. But I will tell you this. I don't think that when this guy got out of jail, he looked through the newspapers and said, hey, Eliza lives in this town outside of Nashville, so I'm going to move within 7 miles and I'm going to start the search. That's not what we're talking about, folks. What we're talking about is happenstance. He finds out and somebody says, hey, did you know that teacher at that school? Hey, she's a billionaire heiress. And somebody goes, no. Hey, she's training for the Boston Marathon. Bing, bing. Enough information to launch my plan, Brian. And even though it's a hasty plan, it's a plan that's going to involve a tremendous amount of violence right up front. Why? Because what can't he do? He can't negotiate with somebody that's injured at that point. He has to kill them right away and then try his own negotiation. Do you get what I'm trying to say? The idea behind keeping her alive and driving around to the ATMs for a while, that paid off poorly. So his brain's chemistry says, well, we're not going to do that. Now, in the moment, he probably had the thought, let's keep her alive long enough to, tape something or do something. And he may have even done that. We don't know. The police are holding that close hold. But the idea was he was never going to let her go, and she was never going to live through this experience because he couldn't risk it. So your brain's chemistry makes you repeat behaviors, whether you're a miscreant like this piece of shit or whether you're a normal human. Now, he didn't accidentally drive over her and then go, oh, shit, put her in the van, take her and dump her somewhere because it was a hit and run. So the idea is to obviate what you know. And what I mean by that is make the knot bigger, because when the knot's bigger, then you can see the most likely paths to untie that knot. Okay, so if we were doing criminal profiling, Brian, the answer is you can't dangle that lure in front of me for too long before I bite. I have a pattern as well, and she fit his pattern. She fit it perfectly, and it cost her life. So all we're saying is harden yourself, because you could be the target. And if you harden your target, they're going to go somewhere else.
No, and
I truly believe that.
No, and it is, and this is why even we even when we teach high speed teams or whoever, like we'll give examples like this, and they're like, well, when I'm deployed to here, like, dude, you're not getting it. Like,
exactly.
If you can't do it, the second you walk out of that house and make a habit of it, then you're not going to magically turn that switch on and go, hey, this is what they're talking about. You have to do it at a white belt level every day in your life to go, what's likely to occur here? Is this the best time? Exactly. Should I continue doing this? Does it burn some calories? It does at first. I mean, really, it does at first when you start doing that, because you're thinking more, you're making different decisions. It might take up a little bit of time, but what happens?
You got to change your life a little, right?
Yeah. But what happens over time? it actually just becomes part of what you do, right? Hey, I'm going to go
Exactly.
this way instead of that way. You know what? I'm just going to go 5 minutes later today. You know what? I'm going to go run this. I mean, those little things are very low calorie, and it
Eh,
prevents stuff like this. And you know, I also kind of want to hit you. You talked about it from the criminal perspective,
yes.
in the sense that she was targeted, but not in the sense that people would think. It's hilarious. I just got a text message from one of our buddies, JB, and text literally I saw the belief of the question is like, hey, do you think this Eliza
You're
was
kidding
targeted?
me.
Yeah, I just didn't get to read the whole thing, but it just popped
Uh,
in, and so I'm going to text him when we're done and be like, guess what we were just talking about.
exactly.
So,
Extend in
but
this
kind of
episode. You're
explain
right.
what you mean by that. Like he targeted her because like he was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get
So,
part of this
so I'll give
money,
you an
or he was
example.
targeted her for like just
Yeah,
elaborate a little bit, because
yeah.
I think I see
Let
where
me
you're
give you
going.
an example. So I'm in Iraq. It's one of my first trips to Iraq, and what I found ironic that I had to tell everybody in Iraq was that they were doing such a great job of SA outside the wire. Combat Hunter helped hugely, tremendously, because remember, that didn't just go to the Marines back then, Brian. We were embedding with
Yeah,
Army units and going
yeah,
outside the wire with them. So a lot of people benefited from that. Not so much inside of the combat outpost or FOB. Why? Because those people wouldn't listen. I'm here to peel potatoes. I'm here to
yes,
wash the general's car. And I mean, those things still happen, folks.
yeah,
So what happened is I'm standing in line for the defect.
yep,
And I look around, and there's all these stones that are there, and I go, well, there's shrapnel. And everybody's in line for 3/4 of a mile, wound around the tent where food, smoke, and smell. And I
yeah,
go, well, one insurgent with a mortar
yes,
or an RPG is going to look at
yes,
that, and they're going to kill all of us. So they said, well, yeah, what would we do, fat man? And I said, here's what you do. You open up your DFAC to all type of hours, including mid-rats. You make sure that people don't come and stand in line. You make different areas that you have protected, and then when that person comes out, they go in, they go, that's a lot of fucking work. Yeah, but
yeah,
you
it
saved a
is.
lot of lives.
Yeah,
Okay, do you see what I mean? So the
and
criminal only has to be right once. You, as the
yeah,
potential victim,
have to
have
be
to be
right.
right every day. So,
Exactly.
so what I'm saying about targeting is he looked at an advantage that he would hold in this circumstance. And he was on his way to work, or he was out of work, or he was high on drugs, or he didn't ever use drugs in his life and he was at church. That shit doesn't matter, Brian. His criminal profile doesn't matter. The idea is that what did he learn over his life? He learned that this was a chance to make money. To remember, rape is a crime of violence. There may have been a sexual component in it. His patterns surrounded about taking people that have money out of their element and using them to make money. And so he saw this, and whether the plan was hatched over a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months, remember, more critical thinking the longer they plan.
Right.
He saw it, and bing, 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 these things fit. He may have been driving home from the bar one morning and saw her running. He may have been dropping his
Been
buddy
out.
off at
Yeah.
work. Do you
Yeah.
see what I'm trying to say?
We,
But the idea is we don't think like that. Who
right.
thinks like that? The extremes. So your terrorists and your criminals are on one side, and then your coppers or your do-gooders are on the
Yeah.
other
On the
side.
other side.
But all the rest of the people that are in the middle, Brian, they never consider that. And we're in a world now, and a part of the world, and a time of our evolution where you have to critically think your way through this. You got to game them. If you don't game going to the store today, like for example, there was a guy the other day, stupid example, but it's just like the Iraq. If you sit down for a minute, you'll get it. Guy passed me on our little road out here. The speed limit's 40. There's deer everywhere, rabbits everywhere. The hay truck pulling out that's going 9 miles an hour, and he passed me at like 70 in a 40. All I did is think about, what's it going to look like at this crime scene when he rolls over, he gets ejected, all that
Yeah.
other shit. The very next morning on my way, and this is folks that understand karma, very next morning in the pitches dark with no moon, I see a guy changing a tire on the side of the road. Remember, there's no lights but the moonlight. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the moon was gone, so it's starlight, and that wasn't helping. And I could barely see it because it's very early in the morning with my headlight wash, and it was him. And he was changing the tire on his vehicle. And it's like, hey, sorry, pal. Any other day, I would have stopped and assisted, but this is God's, or Buddha Vishnu, this is their message to you. So what do I mean about that? That could have been a target of opportunity, Brian.
Right.
Had I been another person, I could have gone up and said, hey, that's nice. Hey, you notice there ain't anybody around for 80 miles? How about that wallet, chum? You get what I'm trying to say? There could have been. So you and I never think of that unless we think of it as targeting a criminal, terrorist, or insurgent. criminals, terrorists, insurgents, they're constantly switched on. They're looking
Yes.
at that and going,
And
you left your window down in your car, and that computer's now mine. You left your cell phone on the table when you went to the bathroom, now it's mine. That's how he
and
thinks.
how good they are is or what their level of organization is going to differ, but they're all going to think that way. Like this guy right here in the suspect in this case, where was her body found? Two blocks from where this guy was staying.
Yep.
2 blocks. Or something, or a half mile. Sorry, I forget.
We could go into a whole thing with geographics, Brian.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like he's going to stay within where he's comfortable in the locations that he knows and he's familiar with, right? Including where to hunt, right? It's not unlike, the lion hunting the deer, right? Or right?
You're exactly
so
right.
The idea, it's the same process, and
the lion hunting the deer. Brian folks is now the big game hunter. No, but that's a great analogy coming from you. Yeah,
I did not sleep last night. These 30-mile-an-hour winds woke me up, so I've been up for like a few hours.
Good. The masterful lion.
All right, so a lion would hunt a deer if there was one in its environment.
No, you're exactly
so
right.
Let's put it that way.
Mountain lion, and then you got it.
There we go. Oh, perfect. There we go. That's what I meant.
Now we're there.
So, but that's the idea. Is my level of organization is going to. I mean, look at how quickly he was arrested too, even before they found her body.
So what do we know? Low level of sophistication, low level of organization.
Yes.
So he got caught more quickly. And then he's not going to say anything. He's going to tell, I don't know what you mean. In the face of all the evidence, I could predict his answers in the room. We could tape an episode on how he's going to sit, how he's going to talk, how he's going to answer the questions. Why? Because in his mind, he's already blocked out that piece going, that goes down a dark hallway I don't want to be. That goes right to the electric chair. I don't want to be there. So I'm going to lie my ass off all the way. And then when she's discovered, I'm going to come up with a what? An excuse. Hey, listen, she had a heart attack. I got out of the car to help her. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And some defense attorney's going to go, I'll buy that for $1. That's how things work, folks. And if you don't predict those now at home, what Brian was calling his, internal the house set, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to, you could be a victim. We're not trying to scare anybody. We're trying to say these would be the 4 things or 5 things I would do differently, if I could be a victim.
Well, and that's what I mean. Even there in the moment, even something is her seeing a vehicle go past and then stop, and just stopping for a second and going, wait a minute, that kind of doesn't really make sense right now.
And how many times has it happened since I've been running? Right. So it's novel. It's nuanced.
It's new. And taking that second, how easy is it to just, I'll double back this way. I mean, it's running. You can run wherever, right? I mean, but we don't want to do that.
Stopping. How about stopping? Do you see what I'm saying? That gives me the gift of time and distance. You're right. But I would ask you this, too, because this just bounced into my head. First of all, shout out to JB. God love JB. He's a great person, and we love him to death. Brian, you're going to have the people that listen to our show that the only thing they listen for is weapons. What's your weapon of choice? I would carry the 9-shot, snub nose, whatever thing.
That's the immediate thing. If she would have had a gun,
that would have been different.
Or this, she would still be alive.
If Jesus would have had a gun, he'd still be alive today. I heard that one too. Do you get what I'm saying? So my point, we're probably both going to hell for that one. It is early, folks. But the idea is.
If Jesus had a gun. Okay.
If Jesus had a gun.
Yeah.
But listen to me. What difference does it make here? If she was untrained in a spontaneous ambush style attack, then look, you're more likely to shoot yourself with a gun or have it and somebody else shoot. We don't think of that. We just think that gun is the magic wand. That would have changed things, Brian.
Yeah. Well, that's
we went how many minutes before we ever brought up a weapon or self-defense or fighting? Yeah. The idea is you can outthink almost any potential tragedy in your world.
Well, and that's the point. Again, don't rely on a tool.
A thing.
You don't rely on a thing. Rely on a think with a K, right? How do I think my way out of this situation? And again, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, if you haven't mastered your ability to think think your way out of a situation, maybe you're just going to rely on a tool. Like, okay,
you got it.
Well, now it's up to that and your ability to when you spend the time.
So now it's a zero-sum game. Well, now you're down to binary, right? Win or lose.
You're putting yourself into that, and you're opening yourself up to a whole bunch of other potential outcomes that could be even worse for you. And you'll never even use it in a situation where you thought you might use it. And I'm not against it. I'm just saying, like.
But you know what the gun is good for? The gun is good for after you've figured out that it's an ambush and you outthought your opponent, that you get on the phone with 911, give the plate, be an expert witness, and hold your gun in your right or left hand to make sure that if he circles around that block again, he'll whistle when they catch him because
Yeah.
he's going to have so
He's
many
gonna have
fucking holes in him. The same
exactly.
thing with chemical aerosol spray or a impact weapon or your martial arts.
You're
Those are great, but what are they for, Brian? They're like your insurance. You don't want to ever have to use them. And if any of those people that you take a course from for chemical aerosol spray
Yep.
guns, Krav Maga, any of that other stuff, the first thing that they should be teaching you is here's the limits of your human performance and make decisions further away so you can mitigate them or avoid them altogether. Because if you're looking for a fight, Brian, there's a person out there that's willing to fight you or outshoot you or stab you.
Yeah.
And we
So
see that every day.
and you can learn all that in your 4 hour concealed carry class, right?
There you go. Yeah, and be an expert in 1 hour, or with the thing that we see on LinkedIn, where you can be an expert in 4 hours and get your
Watching a video
instructor degree and go out and do it on your own. Yeah, kiss my ass.
and watch a video and learn.
This is hard, Brian. I don't
Yeah.
know how many episodes that we've done because I've got no concept of time in this fashion, but in every single episode, we've endeavored to try to help somebody outthink a clever, cunning opponent. Every
Right.
episode, okay? And it's taken us, what, this is our third year? You get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say of doing this kind of stuff? So when you can tell me that you can get an instructor certification in 4 hours, come on. I can't learn to wipe my ass in 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, well,
Yeah.
and I've got a massive ass, but
It's all out there, and it's usually just I mean, let's call it what it is. It's a fucking money making scheme. I mean, that's what most of those are. So, which sucks. But I think just kind of up armoring your brain and as much training and education you get in that is gonna it's gonna help you out much more than something like this.
So let's go back
to
the Eliza.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And first of all, folks, don't think we're downplaying this. We are so sorry Eliza's dead. But I will tell you, this is a rare but inevitable nowadays situation where a master predator found a wonderful human that failed to anticipate the danger.
The good in everyone.
Everyone.
Like, that's the thing. Is like, I've had that with friends before, where I had one of my friends. She asked me a whole bunch of questions. Well, it was kind of a relationship thing with that, which I stay out of. But if they have specifics about behavior and stuff, I can go, well, this is, and I'm like, she's talking about it, and I'm just like, look, you're a really nice person. You see the good in everything.
Yep.
That's great. You're going to have a wonderful life, and you should, because most people are good. You have to learn to see that there's another side out there, right? There's something else. So
but we have a wonderful life.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is
we're not jaded, Brian.
No, but what I'm saying is
I don't even
take those things into account, where she's going, well, yeah, but she's like justifying everything this person is doing. And I'm like, hey, like, listen to yourself. Like, let me say back to you.
Yes.
Let me put it. I'm going to repeat that story in my terms. And she's like, wow, that sounds messed up. And I'm like, yes. So, but
I go further. And I say, listen, both of us are constantly tuned in to the dark side, to what the MD COA might be that's happening around us. And we both have wonderful relationships and rich, beautiful lives, and we love our children and everything. I don't want people to think that you and I are hoarders that have guns buried in the backyard and that we wear a helmet every time we poke our head out in sunblock 80 and we don't enjoy life. You can do both. That's what I'm saying. You can do both, and you'll be longer lived than most people. Because when you're walking around wearing those rose-colored glasses, Brian, and you're going to miss every opportunity and every danger.
And it just getting into the routine and practice of it, because then you don't have to.
And it's hard at first.
You don't have to look anymore. It becomes self-evident. You see things before you even consciously realize it. Those indicators will pop out to you.
Totally agree.
Versus you searching for them and finding them, they'll stick out so much, because it's just these things. A great one to listen to is the Secure Dad podcast, right?
Oh, I love that,
because he has so many great little tips and advice things. We just, because of how we do stuff, we stay away from TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. And hey, try this, because it's just not what we do, and you have to find what works for you in your situation in your life.
Right.
Like, there is no, it's like the whole, like this one. Oh, if she had a gun, it's like, okay, that's the answer. Like, that's your answer for everything. Like,
of course it is.
It's just so simple. Like, come on, things are more complicated than that. It can't be that simple.
You're exactly right. And science does not favor those type of decisions, Brian, because when you put all your eggs in one basket, we wouldn't have a frame of reference, eggs in one basket, if that was a good idea. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You got to spread them damn eggs out.
There's that other case too that you sent. I want to, I think it was in like North Carolina, where the young couple went to help the lady, and she killed
Great
one.
Case, but I would ask you, why don't we do that on Patreon? because we can do a deep dive on
Yeah,
Patreon for our
yeah.
paid
Actually, I
subscribers.
don't even. Yeah, that's good because there's a lot to get into that,
Yeah, there's a
including
great caper.
a 5-year-old coming out with a shotgun. That's
Exactly. That alone would
oh
have
yeah,
me tuning in.
that's a good one. But yeah, let's
Right.
cover that one on there. So I know I hope everyone listening that this kind of makes a little bit clearer how we do these
Yes.
things and what some basic takeaways of to keep in mind to go, yeah, you know what, I have to do that. Maybe I shouldn't be listening to my music this loud. Maybe I should start to look around a little bit more. I mean, even just that
think
is
through it.
gonna, you don't have to come up with a potential outcome for every single thing happening in your life that would drive you mad. You just
Nope.
have to look at what's likely, what's the most dangerous, right? What am I seeing? Likely that person is just pulling up to their house and going in there and they're whatever, got home from work, got up early.
Yep.
Like even you go to the store at like 6 a.m. because there's no one there and right when it opens. Okay.
Absolutely.
So if I'm out on my jog in Gunnison and I see you coming back, I go, okay, maybe that guy just went to the store, it's fine as long as you keep driving away from me. I know I'm good, right?
And it's a good game.
Yeah,
it's
a
good
fun
game to play. It keeps you alert. It is fun. And so shout out for training. So what's the difference? Look, because at the beginning you need to be trained and mentored. If you gave a kid a bat and a ball and a glove, sooner or later they would figure out baseball.
Yeah.
But the idea, exactly, they would figure out baseball. But some of the rules they came up with would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? And they wouldn't come up with
their technique
3 bases and exactly.
Yeah.
But the idea is that that's life. So either you want to do it on your own or you get a mentor, you get a coach, you get somebody. And what we do is we train you how to look for those things and what to do if you find them. And that's essential. I got a couple of shout outs. So if we're getting close, I just want to say,
go ahead.
So first of all, folks, everybody that's listening to the sound of my voice, Brian and I are going to be in Dallas. I'm not going to tell you when. That's none of your damn business because I don't want to get targeted by any of the creepy people that follow me.
We'll say.
Yeah, in October.
That's from when you're this released, around that time.
So if you want to link up with Brian and I, and that's valuable to you, or if you got an opportunity for us, do me a favor, reach out to Brian. Just send him a message. This is what we're thinking.
At gmail.com.
Okay, second part. Liberty's coming up again. You all know how much we love Liberty University. We got a great course there. If you don't know it or you want to know more about it, send Brian an informative or an email, and he'll send you an informative brochure, tell you everything that you need to know about it, or answer all your questions.
And if you're law enforcement, it's free.
It's free. And if you're from a certain state that we all know, you get college credit hours. The other one, Brian, is shout out to our dear friends at Lafayette, Coney Island.
Oh, man.
I hope they get control. So both of our PTS was triggered during our recent trip to Detroit. Brian, I'll let you take it from there, but shout out to our friends at Lafayette.
We were in Detroit, Ann Arbor area recently, and Greg introduced me, which I had never had, to the Coney dog, right? Which we had for breakfast that day, which is the Breakfast of Champions.
It really
which is, for those who don't know, in Detroit, they do the Coney dog, where it's a hot dog with chili and onions on it, right? That was it. So, and it's amazing. It's delicious, but we went into Lafayette, Coney Island, one of the original places. It's literally like stepping into a time machine. I mean, nothing.
It really was. Yeah, great call.
There's like the back half that's a little bit newer, but it's that part's still really old. I mean, there's like flies in there and everything. And so Greg's like, yeah, you got to go check out the bathroom downstairs. And I went down there and it was just dark and dingy and nasty and, looked like a good place to lop some people's heads off.
Exactly. And the equation I made is when we were in Iraq and there was a horrible situation, I took those photos. I was immediately transported back to that situation.
It was like similar tile or similar colors.
Exactly. And it was creepy. And so I went up and I grabbed you. First of all, food was great. Service was incredible. We've always loved Lafayette for the folks that have been there. But
then Greg sends me a few days ago a link to a news article saying Lafayette, Coney Island was shut down for a little while for health reasons.
Exactly.
And they had some inspection in there and they definitely did not pass, which I could have easily
that day
predicted.
Yes, but here's my thing, Brian. Both of us have had worse things in our mouth, so there's no reason that we're going to change our routine. Plus, and if we knock on the glass, maybe we take another.
Plus, it was like $11 or $10 for 3 hot dogs or something like that.
Most massive chili covered and onion covered, and a hint of that yellow mustard, Brian. That put it over.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was a little bit on there.
Just a hint.
It was delicious. It was it fueled me for the walkabout in Detroit. That's for sure.
Exactly. And the colon blow later, made it easier to work out for us.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, like Greg said, questions, stuff like that, reach out, leftofgreg@gmail.com. We do have the Patreon site where we do extra stuff, and
Yeah, we'll
there's all
talk
kinds of
about a
extra
cool thing.
footage on there, and we'll do this one actually. I think we should definitely bring that up on a Patreon one, the one we discussed. Anything involving a 5-year-old with a shotgun is
My
good
kind
to
of
talk
caper.
about. Yeah. So I thought you were going to say my kind of kid, but so we thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate you supporting the show. If you enjoy it, please just share it with your friends, and don't forget that training changes behavior.